Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and you don't want me anywhere near your hair.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet home Chicago.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org. Click on the pictures and you'll get to see links to interviews, to everything's on YouTube for the last 6.5, 7 years, about 250,000 shows watched. Thank you very much. You can friend me on Facebook, Avi Myers. I never post my name on the show, but it's AVY and MEYERA. Oh, you'll find it on the website. In community policing, we're real big on it. There are changes going on in the 24th District. We have a new commander. He's busy studying the neighborhood, so it's too early to speak of him. But we will a little bit with our next guest. And we want to wish Commander James Roussel all the luck in the world. He did a great job for us. But we're still going to have regular community policing meetings monthly. And it's a good thing to show up to them and tell the cops what's going on, and vice versa. Sonny Hirsch, in his spare time, is chairman of the District Advisory Committee of the 24th District. And that's caps24.org, and he has all the latest meetings and all the rest of it. It is a pleasure to introduce you to a longtime guest on the show, the, I believe, 6th-term Alderman of the 49th Ward, as well as now a committee chairman in City Council, and that is Alderman Joe Moore. How you doing?
Avi, it's good to be here. It's good to be back.
First of all, my pleasure.
About how many times have I been on the show, do you estimate?
You know what? I can't even count. I at least 7 or 8 at this point, minimum.
Probably
more.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I can only go back 6.5, 7 years. I could actually do is I don't even know if I've got everything recorded on my computer from the early days anymore.
Yeah, I'm guessing around 10 times.
I think
But
it
anyway, it's
actually
great
could
to be
be
here.
more. Thank
Yeah.
you. So, and hopefully there's many more coming along those lines.
The voters, God and the voters willing.
Yeah, well, you know what? Right now, I got to tell you, you know yourself, you really weren't looking that good for a while, and all of a sudden you really turned things around beyond belief. And you know, one of the reasons is something that you just recently finished up with is the participatory budgeting.
Yes, we just finished another cycle of participatory budgeting, or as we call it, PB. It's sometimes easier to pronounce.
I prefer Skippy Superchunk along those lines.
Another very successful election, a lot of exciting projects. What participatory budgeting, or PB, is, for the viewers who may not know, is where the residents of usually it's a city or a political jurisdiction of the city, get to actually vote on how a portion of their tax dollars are spent. It's something more than just attending a hearing and expressing your viewpoints. This is where you actually get to vote on how a portion of the city budget is spent. It started in Porto Alegre in Brazil, a city in Brazil, a city of about 500,000 people, some 22, 23, 24 years ago. And it is now in the United States. The 49th Ward of Chicago was the first political jurisdiction in the United States to actually give its residents the right to vote on a portion of the city budget.
And for those who don't know, that's East Rogers Park, basically.
That's
and a
right.
little bit of Edgewater?
Not anymore. Under the most recent remap, we lost our Edgewater portion and we picked up more of the Rogers Park community. So about 80% of Rogers Park, East Rogers Park, is now in the 49th Ward, and we have a few blocks west of Ridge in the West Ridge community.
Yeah, and hopefully the next time they gerrymander things, I'll get included in that too.
So anyway, each alderman in Chicago is given $1.3 million to spend at their discretion on capital projects, streets, sidewalks, alleys, and the like. In my case, I took $1 million of that, and I've been doing this now for the last 4 years now, and set it aside. And my residents of my community come up with project proposals. They vet them. The ones that have the most viability and interest are then placed on a ballot, and then my voters come out, my residents come out and vote, and vote for their favorite projects, and the projects with the most votes, up to the $1 million that is spent, are implemented.
And it's been all kinds of stuff. I mean, you fixed streets, you've done murals.
We've done everything from the traditional, resurfacing streets, fixing sidewalks, putting in new streetlights, to some non-traditional projects like artistic murals, a shower at Loyola Beach, heating lamps and benches on our L platforms.
By the way,
a dog-friendly area,
I want to thank
community
them.
garden.
I do use those.
Well,
Thank you.
there you go.
A community garden. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, a dog-friendly area, dog park.
Yeah.
So a lot of traditional items, but also a lot of projects that help to enhance the quality of life for the residents of my community. And it's not me deciding how that money's spent. It's not some bureaucrat downtown. It's the people who live in my community who know best what they want and what they need, who make those decisions.
Which I think is extremely cool. And you're being copied.
And I prefer it to be emulated.
Emulated. Okay. You are being emulated by other aldermen right now.
3 other aldermen had similarly successful participatory budgeting exercises. It was the first time for 3 additional wards in the city. The 5th ward on the city's south side.
Hyde Park.
Yes, the Hyde Park community. The 45th ward on the northwest side, and the 46th ward in the city's uptown area.
Kappelman.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they got good turnout, and they did the process as well. There are 8 city council districts in New York that just completed their second year participatory budgeting based on our model here in the 49th ward. The city of Vallejo, California is doing it. It's the first city to do it on a citywide basis.
Wow.
And then San Francisco is going to do it as well next year, hopefully. So it is spreading, and I'm very excited to have been a part of it. In fact, I just came back a few weeks ago from a trip to the United Kingdom, where I traveled to about 4 different cities, London included, to meet with local elected officials there about our participatory budgeting process in the U.S.
Very cool. And you're leaving out that you were actually asked to lecture at Harvard about it.
Yes. I finally attended Harvard School, Harvard University, but only as a guest. That's
a pretty high honor.
It was exciting, and I was there in about 2 years ago to speak at the Kennedy School.
Nice.
To talk about participatory budgeting in Chicago.
Very nice. So this is all very cool, and was this your idea? Was this Barbara's idea?
Yeah. Although just
by the way,
about,
Barbara's his wife.
Yeah,
and I think very highly of her.
And just about every good idea comes from Barbara. But actually, this one, I was exposed to when I attended a conference in Atlanta, Georgia, in 2007.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, what a neat process. And a couple organization called the Participatory Budgeting Project, which is based out of New York, and they had just been formed, and they were beginning the steps of forming the organization and trying to convince an elected official in the United States to try participatory budgeting. And I was their candidate. I said, let's do it, let's try it. And in 2009, we established it in the 49th Ward, and it's been an extremely popular initiative of mine ever since.
No, that's very cool. And, people would like to see where everybody voted this year and where everything's going.
Yeah, if you want to see the results of the participatory budgeting election, all you have to do is visit my website, ward49.com. Right now, we have them posted on the home page. So all you got to do is just go to ward49.com, and they're right there. And then if you want to find out more about our participatory budgeting process, there is an entire page on my website devoted to it. It's on the you look on the right side of the home page, ward49.com, and go to the participatory budgeting. Click on that link, and you'll have everything you ever wanted to know about not only participatory budgeting in the 49th Ward, but also participatory budgeting worldwide.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it's interesting to see what kind of projects people actually propose, and how the ward actually votes for them.
Yeah, and these aren't projects that I come up with or the city comes up with. These are project ideas, proposals that the people in my community come up with. They're community volunteers. They are volunteers who had attended a community meeting, and learned about participatory budgeting, and said, "Hey, I want to get more involved." And so we call them community representatives, and they become involved in doing in coming up with the project ideas, and they work to vet them with the city officials, find out how much they cost, what's actually doable, and then the project proposals that appear to be the most viable and the most popular get placed on the ballot, and then the residents of my community have the final say. They come out and they vote for their favorite projects.
Now, interesting. I really didn't look over this year's yet, but I have looked in the past, and it's especially in the beginning. It was really interesting to see what people were suggesting, because you definitely have a very creative crew in your ward.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a very involved and creative constituency.
Oh, no question about it. Now, do you find that the voting changes? I mean, is it similar categories from year to year?
Yeah.
or-
Well, we have we divide people up into the volunteers into 5 different subject matter committees. There's one committee devoted to streets, another committee devoted to transportation and things like bikes and other modes of transit. We've got an arts and innovation committee. Let's see, I'm going by memory here. There are I'm drawing a blank, but there's 2 other subject matter committees that, and then they come up with project proposals under their category, and then those are placed on the ballot in under the different categories of streets, transportation, arts and innovation, et cetera. And then the Parks and Recreation was the one I drew a blank
okay.
on. And then the voters look at the ballot choices and decide which ones they want. We also have a separate category that asks voters what percentage of the menu, my budget, they want devoted to streets and streetlights. Some of the basic infrastructure, and then that portion of the budget is set aside to do streets and streetlights. And the community prioritizes which streets they want done, which ones are the most serious need of repair, and then based on the percentage of the ballot of the budget that the voters picked for streets, then those streets are done in priority order. So it's a very somewhat complicated, but not really once you get the hang of it. And people really like the idea that they actually decide how their tax dollars are being spent.
Yeah, I think the end results are really cool. I have to say that it really
Yeah.
is. The fact that people, I mean, not that I've ever been to New England, but they used to tell us in early history classes, how the participatory town meetings.
In a way, it's kind of like a modernized version of the town meeting.
Yeah.
Where not only is it democratic with a small d, but it also builds community. It brings people together. And a lot of folks were afraid at first that people would only be looking at their own interest and they wouldn't be looking at the interests of the community as a whole. But actually the opposite is true. People
Cool.
really rise to the occasion. They're not, it's like when you sit across a table and you see someone who has needs that are greater than yours, you understand that it's important that everyone that it's important to the entire community that the entire community is taken care of. And so there's a real sense of community ownership and of stewardship of the neighborhood. So this has been nothing but a good process.
No, it's very cool. I know myself when I was looking through it the first time, and I also talked to certain people. There were certain people that very much wanted certain things. Somebody might have wanted murals more if they were more artistic. There are some people that really felt the sidewalk needs to be fixed or whatever else. Then the dog people, of course, really wanted that dog park.
Right. Well, and the dog park was on the ballot the first year we did it, and they got their folks out.
Yeah.
People were coming to vote on election day with their dogs. Now the dogs weren't allowed to vote, but they organized, and that's great. That's what the political process is all about.
Yeah.
It's not just the act of voting; it's also the act of becoming engaged and involved in your community. And as a result of that, we've got a couple new community organizations that were formed as a result of that. There's a community committee that's responsible for taking care of that dog park. There's another community committee that has taken responsibility for caring for our community garden.
Nice.
We've got energized Park Advisory Council as a result of people organizing to get improvements to one of our local parks, Toohey Park. So what can I say? It's something that I'm very proud of and proud to have as part of my legacy.
I think it's very cool. There's no question about it. Let's talk a little bit about policing now.
Yeah.
At the time we're doing this, the new commander's only in place for 8 days. So, it's really not, I just know he's 44, he's from the far south side.
Well, I've heard good things about him, my understanding is he understands that Commander Roussel did an excellent job of working with the community. Commander Roussel not only preached community policing, he actually practiced it.
Very much so.
And very much so, and understood the important role that the community can play in making our neighborhood safe. Commander Williams, I believe, shares that goal, which is a good thing for those of us, such as yourself and myself, who very much believe in community policing.
Yeah, you were involved even before there was community policing, trying to get community policing.
And we've been very blessed in the 24th District to have some very energetic and committed police commanders. We've been very fortunate. And Commander Roussel was, I think, one of the best of the best.
I have to agree with you. You know what? I don't want to take anything away. I mean, there's a whole bunch of really, really good ones we've had, and I don't want to take anything away.
Right.
But people were stunned when he left. I mean, and really heartfelt.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Mm-hmm. And whether it was the merchants that he met with on a regular basis.
He was meeting, the community around Howard Street is, it has its challenges. We were meeting on a monthly basis with business owners and shopkeepers and property owners on Howard Street. We were meeting on a monthly basis with the property building owners and building managers in the north of Howard community. And we're also forming a youth committee. All of that we met hand in glove with Commander Roussel. He was at each and every one of those meetings. And as you know, he was more often than not attended the beat meetings as well, which is, occasionally in the past the commander would show up, but he was there all the time. The man was a workaholic.
No, and you know what? He was a highly active participant in them. He really was.
Yeah.
And when I found out that he was gone, it's like I wrote him a note. Actually, if I had checked my email earlier, you were the first person who emailed it out. And by the way, people want to find out what's going on in your ward. I think I'll let you plug it after. Let's talk about Roussel first. I wrote him a note that, we're really going to miss him, and everybody's very disappointed that he left. But also, it's not his decision. It's not like, okay, I get to do what I want.
Well, here's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's the police superintendent's call. I was very sorry to see Commander Roussel go, but here's what happens when you hire somebody good, they are they're inevitably going to get promoted to a new job, and that's what happened here. We have a lot of challenges in the city with respect to public safety, and I certainly respect the right of Superintendent McCarthy to put Commander Roussel in a position of greater authority and putting him in an area of the city that has some great challenges. And I look forward to working with his replacement. And I believe Commander Williams is equally committed to community policing. And I expect that he will meet the high bar that Commander Roussel set.
I got to tell you, too, sometimes after the District Advisory Committee meetings, Sonny and I would talk to Roussel. His understanding of history and how things work in certain parts of the world was beyond belief.
Yeah, he was very well read.
And, You know, he was talking about how he used to argue with somebody about who the new powers in the Middle East was going to be.
You know, we're talking to him like he's passed away. I mean,
No, and by the way, he wrote me he wrote me a really nice note after
that's
I said,
good.
but no, I got to tell you, I just wanted to, actually, and this is just in praise of him and going forward too. He talked about how anybody, and I didn't think about this either, now that Turkey is showing new strength, he talked about, well, that was the Ottoman Empire that really ruled that region for hundreds of years, which is something that didn't even occur to me because things change along those lines. By the same token, he was also, a lot of people don't know, he was a colonel twice in Fallujah during the Gulf War. And I started talking to him about drones one time and the possible use of drones in the city. I mean, not necessarily to go shoot gang members, but
surveillance.
Surveillance, yeah. He told me he actually ran drones when he was in the Gulf War.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That really surprised me, but I didn't ask him exactly what he was doing with the drones, but I'm sure it wasn't to get, well, whatever. But you know what? People want your newsletter,
Yes.
because that's what I was alluding to before.
Well,
which is very informative, and it comes out several times a week. And, you get to find out about all the different meetings and where to follow, Alderman more on Fridays, and not to mention new businesses, all the zoning stuff, all the rest of it.
Yep, I have a electronic newsletter, and anyone who lives in the ward or anyone who lives anywhere near the ward or anywhere else, I encourage you to subscribe to my electronic newsletter. It's you can just go to ward49.com, which is my website, and at the top of the homepage is a place where you can enter your email address and submit it, and then we'll include you on our electronic newsletter. I write them myself. People ask, well, you have someone on your staff who writes it? No. I really feel it's important when you're communicating with your constituents to do it in your own voice, and so I write them all myself.
Interesting.
And,
you know what? I never thought about it, but I should have known.
Yeah. So and I try to, rather than just send out a newsletter with, all sorts of information that overwhelms people, I usually take one or two of the key topics, key news items, and send them out, and then I put in the subject matter, what it's about, so people don't, if it's an area that they're not interested in, they can just hit the delete button or whatever. But people have told me that it's very useful to them, and they've really appreciate being informed.
No, I like it. I like it very much. And
Yeah,
I
the
think it
most
should be a model
really the
to
most
other people.
important I found, and I learned the hard way because I almost at one point lost my job as alderman because I didn't think I was effectively communicating with my constituents. So I learned my lesson, made effective use, I think, of the internet and the fact that everyone's online now, and now I just kill people with communication. Let them know what's going on. People want to know, and they not only want to know what's going on, they want to know why I make certain decisions, and it gives me an opportunity to explain in detail, some of the contentious zoning issues, for example, that I'm asked to weigh in on, and I think it's really helped me govern more effectively and help my constituents understand what's going on in their community.
Cool. You know what? Let's get to one citywide topic. We
Sure.
got about 5 minutes left. Whenever Jim Nally or Larry Sufferton take me to a Cub game, I see you. You actually have better seats than they do.
That's actually not true, but
Well,
yeah,
they both have really good seats. I mean,
Yeah.
Jim basically is behind home plate, but he's only got a quarter of the ticket. Larry actually sits in my boyhood spot, which was right
okay.
under the WGN microphone, right by third base, and I wanted to be fairly close to Billy Williams at the time.
yeah.
But I've usually seen you in the boxes.
Well, I'm a lifelong Cub fan, and baseball is my one diversion. Most of the time, I'm either working or I'm with my family. But baseball is my one kind of pastime, and I've enjoyed it. I am looking forward to a year where hopefully the Cubs are at 500. They got off to a rough start, but we're hoping that
Well, it's a
they can
162
turn it
game
around.
year.
It's a long season, and and I do have hopes that they'll get to 500 this year. And then with the new prospects that are coming up that they're building in their minor league system, which they haven't done in years, that we can have some
we've
really good
always had
things in the
guys
future.
like from Danny Murphy to Peter Lecoq. I mean, there's always been these promising guys that never come through. But I got to tell you, if you saw Baez at all in the spring, that guy can hit and he can seriously field at shortstop. And you've got Almora, and you've got the Cuban guy who was set down for 5 games to sign a 9. Sorrell, or
You talk about Castro.
Solars.
Oh, Solars, yeah.
Yeah. You've got some very serious prospects. Plus, we've got the number 2 pick in the draft coming up.
Yep. So you were going to ask something about the Wrigley Field, perhaps?
Of course.
Okay.
But I also realize every alderman's in charge of their own ward. So, it's going to be up to Tom Tunney
Right.
to a certain extent, but I think there's definitely
Well,
a lot
Alderman
of pressure
Tunney
on him.
was a very aggressive advocate for his community and made sure that the neighborhood surrounding Wrigley Field was protected, that additional police protection was paid for by the Cubs was guaranteed, that there were additional parking amenities to try to prevent a lot of the congestion that occurs in the neighborhood on game day, and encouraging people the Cubs to provide more shuttle service and provide it free of charge for folks so that they don't drive right in there. So that's the role of an alderman. That is to protect and safeguard the interests of their community. And I'm happy to see that a compromise was reached, that Wrigley Field will be renovated without using any tax dollars. I'm impressed that the mayor stuck to his commitment that no tax dollars would be used to renovate
I'll
Wrigley
give
Field.
him credit on that.
And Wrigley Field will be renovated. It's one of the biggest tourist attractions Chicago has. So it's going to be beneficial not only to baseball fans like myself, but to every Chicago resident, because they're going to have an economic engine rejuvenated and made to last for another 100 years.
Much as I
And
love
maybe in the next 100 years we might actually get a World Series. We'll see.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my friend Jim Nally, well, actually, he was against you election lawyer-wise, but that's not personal.
It's all business.
He gave me a hat that said, he bought me a hat one time that said Cubs, 1908 World Champs. And that may be the closest. But, you never know. Hopefully this will work out. Let's talk about, we've only got about a minute and a half. The goat head. Now, first of all, I thought it was poor manners not to cook it, at least if you're going to serve it that way. But I used to have a lot of customers in Chinatown, and some of them were butchers and stuff. And I'd go, I don't think anybody actually severed the head of a goat. You can just walk into these places.
Just for so your viewing audience knows, you're talking about the incident that occurred in April when
Tom Ricketts was
when
somebody
somebody
dropped the box.
delivered a box and inside was a goat head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I honestly
Some people
don't-
thought it was a funny joke. I don't know.
I think it was in poor taste. But the truth of the matter is, if you're really going to threaten somebody, you really threaten somebody. I think it was.
More of a joke.
I think that's what's my feeling. Bad joke, poor taste, pretty yucky, and somebody probably was reading about. Who knows? It might have been.
They
they
probably saw the Godfather movie on video or something.
Yeah, well, Rom's famous for that 2.5-foot long fish, but that's another story. Anyway, at this point, I really got to wrap up. So time flies when you're having fun. I want to thank very much and I didn't even mention your committee chairmanship.
Oh yes, I'm proud to be chairman of the City Council Human Relations Committee.
So City Council Human Relations Committee, and there's less committees than ever, so it's got more weight than it ever had. Alderman of the 49th Ward, husband of Barbara, who actually probably has a good place in public office someday if she wants to run for
if
it.
she ever does, she'd make a fine public servant.
Absolutely, and I want to thank you very much. And if people would like to contact you,
ward49.com, or you can email me at ward49@cityofchicago.org.
I want to thank you very much for being here, Alderman Joe Moore.
Always a pleasure, Avi.
My pleasure. I want to thank my entire technical crew, Sonny Hirsch. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have interesting guests like Alderman Bernie Stone and Skinny Sheehan, a first-time guest. So thanks so much, everybody. Be well. Bye-bye.